everybody. Vinny Sinisi here. Vinny's out to the farm today because we got the big puma. We had the big donkey a couple weeks ago. So anyway, really happy to have my good friend Lance Berkman with us. Lance and I have been friends for, 26, 30 years, Rice years.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time I took Vincent, my son, to a Rice game. I said, come on, we got to go watch this guy. It's like 96 or 7. And remember the old bleachers with the...
Oh, yeah.
If you move sideways, you got...
No, you got a splinter.
Splinters in your butt.
They felt like they were going to fall down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit a home run from both sides of the plate. And I looked at Vince and I said, that's the kind of stuff you got to do to make it to the big leagues. And, of course, the rest is history. You guys were the stepping stones for the national championship team because you guys, that was first year you went to the College World Series, like 97.
That's right. Yeah. It was cool to watch. Coach Graham had obviously had a lot of success in junior college, and he took over. I think I was on his third team there at Rice, maybe fourth. But it was really neat to be able to watch. At the time, it wasn't because he was yelling at us and we were,
everybody
scared to death of him. But looking back on it, kind of seeing how he shifted the mentality of the entire program. And some of it was getting good players. We had Matt Anderson, who was the #1 overall pick in '97. We had Bubba Crosby, who was a first-round draft pick.
Do you have Van Hoss on that team?
No, but we had Mario Ramos was one of our starting pitchers for that College World Series team. He pitched in the big leagues. Jeff Gwynn pitched in the big leagues.
I still keep in touch with Gwynny.
Yeah, so so there was some so I guess it was a combination of Coach Graham getting the right players, but really more than anything else, it was changing the mentality and kind of seeing it shift from we hope we can win to now we just expect to win. And it's funny because it's kind of come full circle. I'm now volunteering at Rice under Coach Pierce, who was there when Vincent was there, and he is fantastic. He reminds me a lot of Coach Graham, and he has really changed the mentality of the program. We're having kind of one of those turnaround type seasons, and it's just the similarities are kind of spooky when you have experienced it on one end, and then years later, his assistant coach comes in and does the same thing.
Rice has a winning season, first time in many years.
I know it, and things are looking up. The schedule's setting up pretty well for us. We got guys that are playing. The whole thing is, it's pitching and defense is the foundation of any good baseball team, and
Astros should listen to this.
Yeah, well, they know it. It's hard to get it. But
the pitching is
the pitching
snake bit.
Yeah. So, but we finally have gotten some guys that are consistently performing on the mound, and the defense has been really, really good. And then Coach Pierce has done a great job of changing the way that the guys think. And so now it's starting to ease into we expect to win rather than we just hope
maybe we will.
Win.
Yeah. It's funny because in 1991, I called Coach Graham. I knew his resume from San Jack. He won all the time. And I called him. I said, Coach, he picked up the phone. Coach Graham, I said, you pick up the phone? Yeah, we don't have anybody doing that for us.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I'm thinking about getting into coaching. Just wanted to get your opinion. Don't do it. You just forget it. You'll be an assistant. You won't make any money, blah, 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 blah. I never thought that my kid would be playing for him. 8 years later, whatever it was. And I told him, I said, well, how long do you think you'll be before you have like a winning season? He said, probably 5 years to recruit. So 91 to 96, right? And that's when you guys had Cruz.
Yeah. And so 95 was really the kind of the first year because that was the first year that Rice had ever made a regional tournament. Back then it wasn't, super regional. I think it was like eight 6-team regionals. So there was, 48? I'm not good with math, but
it's okay.
But there was only 48 teams that made, the whole. Now I think they've expanded to 60, and then you have the super regional. So it's a little bit of a different format. But in '95, that was kind of the breakthrough because we made a regional for the first time that Rice had ever done that. We actually beat LSU twice at LSU, which was a huge deal.
Oh yeah, nobody
we ended
wins
up,
there.
Making it to the regional final. So we were essentially a win away from going to Omaha my freshman year. We lost to Cal State Fullerton, who ended up winning the whole thing. Then in '96, we won the Southwest Conference it was the last year of the Southwest Conference. We won it won the tournament. The only time Rice had ever done that, and qualified for the regional and made it to the regional final again. And then Wichita State beat us that year. They had a really good team.
Remember that? Yeah.
And then in '97, we finally broke through. We shifted to the WAC. In '97, we had some older guys. We had an infusion of young pitching talent. We actually started 3 freshmen primarily that year. Won the WAC and then won the tournament and won the regional, and went to Omaha for the first time.
Yeah,
so that was just a neat.
So I say
experience.
that was the stepping stone.
Yeah, right.
For the 03 team.
Mm-hmm. And building towards that, and then 2 years later in '99, they went back to the College World Series, kind of knocking on the door, and they may have gone one other time. I think either 2000. I think it was 2001.
2.
Or was it 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in 3, of course, they broke through and won it, and Vincent was a key part of that team. So it's kind of funny that Coach Pierce was the assistant coach on that team.
Yeah.
He remembers fondly. He was like, we'd be sitting out there at practice, and Coach Graham would look over there, just talking about your son, and he would say, "Well, Vincent's bored. We need to start hitting." They'd be doing some kind of bunt defense, and he said Coach Graham would look over there and say, "Well, Vincent's bored. Let's move on."
It's funny because he told a story about, Sinisi. He drags the bat up to the plate like he's going to fall asleep, and then he hits you a double. And I said, that's why guys like you were so successful. There was no beat in the chest like there is today.
Mm-hmm.
You're down 10-0 and you hit a home run and you run around the base. 10-1, look at me. And you lost. Okay.
Right.
I listened to this thing about Pete Rose the other day, and he said, winning was everything. I mean, when I was growing up, my dad, you win. If you don't win, we're not stopping to get anything to eat on the way home. He said, you lose 3 games. He says, you're on Jenny Craig.
Yeah. Well, that was the mentality for sure. My dad was very similar to that. I remember one of my most vivid memories from youth baseball was I grew up in Austin, and I played at Oak Hill Little League, which and our main rivals were either Manchac or Town and Country. And Town and Country was a group out of Round Rock, kind of the North Austin Round Rock area. They were really good. They had several guys come out of there that had played, at Texas and other places. And it seemed like we were always running up against either one of those two to make it to the next, level of tournament. And I'll never forget, we were playing Town and Country in a tournament. I was probably 12 years old. We had a really good team, and we lost a heartbreaker and came in second place in the tournament. And of course they have this, trophy presentation where they give first and second place trophies. And I was like, at that time, you think trophies are really cool, and you got a bunch of them in your room. And I had the second place trophy, and after the ceremony, we were walking to the car, and my dad grabbed my trophy and threw it in the garbage, like on our way to the truck. And
that's funny. Like, I loved your dad because I spoke with him a lot about, the experience, why you choose Rice. And all that. It's funny because Vincent's kid, Jackson, won a ring. They give rings now instead of trophies. And he goes, "Pops, look I won a ring." I said, "I thought you guys lost." "Yeah, but they give rings." I said, "If I were you, I'd throw that ring right in the trash." I said, "You want to put those on your mantle when you're dating girls? Go, look, I got second place," and she's going to say, "I'm dating a loser."
That's right. Yeah, no, it's definitely a different mentality, I think, nowadays than it was.
Why'd you choose Rice?
Well, they actually chose me. I didn't have a whole lot of options coming out of high school. I was not heavily recruited. I really wanted to go to A&M, believe it or not. The entire side of my mom's family, they were big Aggies, and so I kind of grew up. Even though we lived in Austin, I kind of was like, my dad he played at Texas for Coach Gus, and but for some reason that was never like super appealing. I really wanted to go to A&M, and they didn't recruit me. Of course, Texas didn't recruit me. Rice is the one that really was like, "Hey,
that was Coach Prather, wasn't it?"
Well, it was actually at that time it was Coach Noble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Rainer Noble, who ended up being the head coach at U of H, he left. He recruited me to Rice and then left before I got there. So, but again, you talk about how things have changed. Nowadays, the recruiting process there's a lot of pomp and circumstance, and
25 scholarships now. 11.7 back then.
But even just the way that they do it, I remember our recruiting visit. Coach Graham had called, or I think it was Coach Noble actually had called and said, "Hey, you want to come down and see the campus?" And so my dad and I drove from, at that time we were living in New Braunfels, so we drove from New Braunfels over. we got to the campus. We talked to Coach Noble. He showed us. I mean, at that time the facilities were, not great, but he was like, "Here's the baseball field. Here's the locker room."
Yeah.
And then I went around campus with Joe Cathy, who ended up being a good friend, and came back. And Coach Noble was like, "Well, what do you think? You want to sign?" I'm like, "Yep." So I signed my scholarship right there on the steps, and then we left, went back home, and that was it.
I've talked with you for 30 years, 26 years at least. I never knew you wanted to go to A&M.
Yeah,
because Vincent wanted to go to A&M. That was his choice.
Yep.
And we went to. They wouldn't recruit us on the first day. I called Coach Lowe. I said, "Well, what's the deal?" "Well, we think he's going to sign a professional contract out of high school." I said, "No, he's going to college." "Well, we think he'll be drafted high." I said, "What do you think? What's high?" "Oh, probably 4th or 5th round." I said, That's like $500,000 or $600,000. It sounds like a lot, but when you're playing 5 years in the minors and you got to live off of that, that's not a lot of money. They didn't recruit him, so who pounced on him? Texas. And I wanted him to go to Rice because I thought his personality with Wayne would have been perfect. And you go to Texas and you got the Heisman Trophy and you get the pomp and circumstance. So he chose Texas. So that's the funny part is he went to Texas in 2001, broke his first rib. They never found it, and said, "Oh, you just don't like working out," and blah 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 blah. So he transferred to Rice. The year that he transferred to Rice, we played Texas in the College World Series and lost on this ESPY play at the plate with Vincent.
Was that 02?
Yeah, 02.
Yeah.
And then the next year,
beat them.
We won. Yeah. So I didn't know you were going to go to A&M. That's crazy.
Well, I mean,
that was your choice.
That was my choice.
Yeah.
They didn't choose me, but
Same.
And the funny thing is, I talked to Coach Graham years later about the recruitment process, and it turns out he had never seen me play before they offered me a scholarship. And there was a scout named Randy Taylor who was a national cross checker for the Rangers that Coach Graham was very good friends with, and would send players. And Coach had, according to Coach, he called Randy. He was like, "I need a left-handed hitter," and Randy said, "Well, I don't know. This guy's a switch hitter, but he can really hit, and nobody knows. Nobody's really on him. He's in New Braunfels." And so Coach was like, "That's good enough for me." So he offered me a scholarship on Randy's recommendation, and so. I think he ended up getting a lot of players that way because he had been, he had so many contacts from being in junior college and had been, coaching in high school for, I think between high school and junior college, he had been a coach for 20 years before he even came to Rice. So one thing that I discovered when I attempted to be a college head coach is that those relationships are so valuable because you just can't see everybody. You have to trust the judgment of people that are out there doing it for a living.
Yeah.
And so I think Coach had a leg up on people because he had those relationships, and that's how I got to Rice.
The reason that he was so successful, in my opinion, is recruiting.
Yeah.
And, Randy Taylor's brother, Mike, and Pierce were there. And it's funny, you said that Randy Taylor signed Vincent.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. That's right.
How small the world is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But those guys, we coached those summer teams with the Houston Heat, and Pierce and Taylor, they were always on us. And I talked to Phil Graham, who unfortunately we just lost. He was going to do a podcast with us. We talked about Tony Vitello because he's a big Tennessee Vol, and Tony Vitello, when he was at Tennessee, was always on us. And look what he did. So it's all about the recruiting. And when Wayne left and it changed hands, I never saw any of those guys recruiting. It was just like bring them in. The honor system faded. They didn't go to class. I mean, that's big at Rice.
Oh no, yeah,
you can't even get in there unless,
And I think Coach Prather, who doesn't get a lot of credit, John Prather was Coach Graham's main assistant right after Rayner left, and he's the one that actually recruited. The national championship team, that was Coach Prather's last recruiting class that he signed before he left. And so, having good assistant coaches is critical to any program's success. And if you look at, I think Coach Prather was exceptional at identifying talent and signing guys. I think Coach Pierce is a phenomenal coach. Coach Hallmark now, who's had success at UTSA, he was an assistant there. So if you look at at Coach Graham's assistant coaches, they were really good also, and you can't run a successful college program without them.
Yeah, it's funny because, when Vincent didn't get recruited by A&M, it was Texas or Rice. And Texas had all, you go there, and how can you not say no?
Mm-hmm.
And when we went to Rice for the wrecking ball, that was the year they demolished the state.
Yeah, and there was
the wrecking ball was sitting on home plate.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he said, I think I'm going to go to Texas. I said, bad decision, but you go for it. And it all worked out. So
I see, and that's funny because I didn't realize that Vincent had started out at Texas.
Yeah.
And I would have done the same thing had they. There's a kind of an interesting story that's related to that. I grew up in Austin. Like I said, my dad played on Coach Gus's first team. He was on Coach Falk's last team and Coach Gus's first team. And went to the UT camps and everything and played there for the Austin Slam was my summer league team.
Yeah, that was our big rival.
Yeah, and would really, have good summers. And my Tommy Boggs, who's since passed, had reached out to Darren Gustafson, Cliff's son, who was at that time the recruiting coordinator for Texas. And he said, hey, have you guys looked at Lance? I mean, I think he can hit. And Darren told Tommy, he said, I don't think he'll hit in college. And so Tommy had passed that message on to me. And they, Texas never recruited me. So fast forward, my freshman year at Rice, I was having a good year. We're in the middle of Southwest Conference play. Texas comes in. I hit a home run on Friday night off their Friday night guy. We win the game. And the next day, during batting practice, I was the left fielder. So Texas was stretching in the left field corner, and I was kind of standing in front of the team, shagging for our batting practice. Yeah. And Darren was there, and he called me over. He said, hey, Lance, can I talk to you? So I jogged over there, and he said, hey, where did you come from? And of course, I know that he had told my summer league coach that he didn't, didn't think I was going to be able to hit in college. And he's pretending like he's never heard of me.
Who are you?
Yeah. And I said, well, coach, I grew up in Austin. My dad played for your dad. And, I came to all y'all's camps and all that. And he said, well, man, I guess I don't know how we missed on you. And he said, if you wanted to fail out at Rice, we would have a scholarship for you in Texas. And I said, well, coach, I'm flattered. I appreciate it, but I'm pretty happy here. So, but that's my Texas recruiting story. They recruited me after I already came to Rice, and
it's amazing how similar this is with you and Vincent.
Yeah.
And then y'all were the same number at Rice. Mm-hmm. And probably, I think the two of you are in the top 3 of hitting statistics there.
Offensively. And he used the bats that weren't nearly as good as the ones that
-5. Yeah. You guys, you could kill somebody with the way you swung it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Did you hit a ball like the home run derby, like 480 feet or some stuff?
Well, they just, the problem with those -5s, because I used a 34-30, so you could use a -5, but I used a -4. And the reason is because the wall thickness on those bats was so thin that you would use it for 2 or 3 games and you would dent it. And so for the durability, that 34-30 was good. But man, those suckers, they had a sweet spot the size of a watermelon, and you just had to. It's almost like a cavity back. Now we appreciate the cavity back in the golf game. That's very similar to what we were using.
Well, you had a great mentor in Larry. I mean, your dad, right? Mm-hmm. And he suggested that you hit switch.
Yeah. So from the time, I always tell people my dad was a baseball is a baseball psycho, to the point where he realized when I was an infant, this is, of course I don't have any memory of this, but he said when you were in the crib still and we give you your bottle, you would throw your bottle out of the bed left-handed. So he said, I knew you were a left-handed thrower. And literally from the time I could walk, he had put a bat in my hand. And I got, I wanted to be a right-handed hitter, just naturally.
You're watching, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, so a left-handed thrower, right-handed hitter is a bad combination because you're limited in the positions that you can play as a left-handed thrower, and right-handed hitters are kind of like a dime a dozen, or at least they were. Sure. In his mind, he figured if I could throw left-handed, I ought to be able to hit left-handed. So from the time I could walk, he made me switch hit, and so I just basically have done it my whole life, and it was his. I just thinking like, why in the world would you even think that about a 2 or 3 year old kid that can barely walk, and he's already planning my baseball career in the future.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I didn't have a dad growing up, so Vincent's my first kid, and we just go out there and play catch, and I'm like left-hander, right? And I'm like, this kid's a weirdo. He throws the ball well.
Yeah.
He swing. He got kicked out of the YMCA at 5 years old because he hit those rag balls too hard, and the parents were complaining.
Oh yeah.
I said, "Who's running the show here? The
Right.
parents or the YMCA?"
Uh-huh.
So, and then of course the rest is history. I'm like, Jerry Lewis, that was the finance guy at Rice.
Uh-huh.
His wife was Mary Lewis. She was one of the people that helped with ticket sales and hosting and all that at Rice. And when we were 9, I had Billy Lewis, their kid, on the team. And she came up to me after a game and said, "Vinny, Vincent needs to go to Rice." I'm like, "He's 9."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He had a good game. He's 9 on a pitching machine.
Yeah, right.
I said, "I'm telling Coach Prather about it." I said, "Okay." So it's just phenomenal that
just
he
the
ended
way it
up
worked
there.
out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you set all sorts of records at Rice. I mean, there's no doubt. Plus, biggest accomplishment probably going to the College World Series as a team.
Oh yeah,
you're a big team guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the big leagues. You get drafted in the first round. You were like Baseball America's Player of the Year and all that good stuff. You go to the minor leagues and you do pretty well. And then a couple years you get brought up. Like 99 came up.
Yeah, got called up in 99.
Is that the Astrodome still?
Yes, it was the Astrodome, and it was
like playing on this carpet.
But I'm so glad that I got a chance to play there because it's pretty cool. I actually really liked it. Of course, weather is perfect every day, and
right.
It was a better hitter's park. It wasn't a great home run park, but it was a great hitter's park, and the outfielders were spread way out because the outfield was big. So there was plenty of room in the gaps. And then, of course, as you already referenced, it's like playing on this carpet. It was really fast. So if you had a ground ball, you had a great chance to get a base hit. There was plenty of room out in the outfield for hits to sneak in there. So
not like Wrigley.
Not like Wrigley. I hate Wrigley. Terrible.
You told me that
place.
before they cut the grass.
The grass is.
You hit a screamer and it doesn't make it to the dirt.
Oh, it's unbelievable. There's no hits. If the wind's blowing in, there's literally back. When I was playing, there was no hits. The grass is knee high, and then you hit the ball in the air, and the wind's blowing in. It's not going anywhere.
But it's famous. I mean,
it is famous.
That's where you got your nickname.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Twinkies.
Yeah, that's a great story. There's actually a couple of good stories that are related to Wrigley. And that's one of them when we were, I think it was probably 2002 or 3. I want to say it was somewhere in that. Maybe, no, I take that back. I think it was 2004. But whenever it was, I was playing left field. And, of course, the bleacher bums are out there and they're three sheets brutal. To the wind. And they're screaming at you the whole time. And, Berkman mixing a salad, you're fat and all this. And so I happened to turn around, this was a mistake on my part. And I should know better. But I happened to turn around. And there were these two guys that were more vociferous, if you will, than everybody else. And they were like at the forefront. And so I glance up at them, and one of them has a box of Twinkies, and the other one has a package of Twinkies. And they're kind of, shaking them at me. And they're like, "Berkman, we know you want one of these Twinkies. We know you're hungry." And they were on me the whole game about how fat I was and this and that. So about the 6th or 7th inning, our pitcher started laboring, so our coach comes out to make a change. And during the pitching change, I turned around, I was like, "Hey," and the guy was like, "You talking to me?" I was like, "Yeah, throw me those Twinkies." He goes, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, throw them out here." So he threw the package of Twinkies out on the field, and I walk over there and pick it up and open it, and I ate a Twinkie, during the pitching change, and that place went. That section of the bleachers went crazy. They thought it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen.
Twinkie power.
Yeah, and so my next at bat, I hit a homer. I put the other Twinkie in my back pocket, but I got a standing ovation for playing along. I guess famous with their joke. So that was one.
Isn't that the way you're supposed to play?
Yeah.
The game.
Oh, I mean,
if you can't have fun,
yeah.
Don't even go out there.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I know there's a lot of pressure. Hitting a baseball is the toughest thing in the world, but I mean, you're in the big leagues,
And it's a grind. I mean, it is a job, but you definitely have to enjoy what you're doing. It's just like anything else. I mean, getting up and going to work every day, there has to be a measure of enjoyment, or else, you're leading a miserable life.
Well, David Ardsma, closer for our World Series team. When he got to Wrigley, there was the girl down in the bullpen down there, because you're right on the people.
Yep.
She was heckling him so bad, he finally said, "What is the deal Well, he's been married to her
No
for
way.
like 20 years.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's amazing. Yeah. So
Yeah,
she heckled him, and then they
it's
ended up getting
crazy.
married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to the big leagues and you do okay, and then you get sent back.
Yeah, that was a tough period because
Yeah.
I kind of came up and down. The Astros were pretty good, and they had won the Central Division 3 years in a row, 97, 98, and then I came in 99. And they had Carl Everett, they had Moises Alou, they had Richard Hidalgo. They had some really good young
You're not going to play
outfielders.
first base,
Right?
'cause
Bagwell's a icon at first. So it was one of those where I think they were like, trying to figure out how to
Mix
get
you
me
in
in,
there,
but also I didn't help my cause because I think I went 2 for my first 21. I know I went 0 for my first 10. Got a base hit off of Bartolo Colon actually.
Oh wow.
And he was throwing 101 miles an hour, and I just remember like I went to swing at it, and I thought I was hitting it here, and I actually hit it way back here, and I shot it between short and third for a base hit. And it kind of got the monkey off my back. So got a hit, and but ended up 2 for 21.
Was that your first hit in the big leagues?
First hit in the big leagues? Yep.
Still got the ball?
Yeah, I do have the ball.
Yep.
And then I kind of got on a little bit of a roll after that. But then I think the reason I'd been called up is because Moises Alou had pulled a calf muscle.
Yeah.
So he had got healthy, so they sent me back. And then a little bit later, so that was in July of 99. And of course, September's right around the corner. So I was up for the last part of July, first part of August.
Expand the
when the rosters expanded, they called me back up. So I was, on the team for the rest of the year. That was kind of cool because that was the last year of the Astrodome. The last game really the last series of the year, that place was jammed. I mean, there was like 70,000 people because they wanted to be there, and it was loud. And we won. I think we won the division on the last or second to last game of the year. So it was a great atmosphere as a young player to get to see that and experience it. But then that next year, it was like, okay, I had a taste of the big leagues and I did okay. Not great, not horrible. I guess now looking back, at the time, it felt like it was horrible. But so it was coming into the 2000 season. I had a really good spring training. I think I hit 7 or 8 home runs in spring training, and felt like I should have made the roster, out of camp. Yeah. But again, they had signed a free agent named Roger Cedeno to play center field. They had Hidalgo, we had Alou. Again, it's kind of a logjam. So they sent me back to AAA. And I was down there for 2 or 3 weeks. They called me up. Somebody had gotten hurt, and I went 2 for 21 again. So now I'm like, you get to the point where you feel like I'm having some chances, and you better start to produce because if you don't, you feel like you could end up being labeled as like a 4A player where you're doing well in AAA, but when they put the third deck on the stadium, you get to the big leagues, then it's
Jason Lane.
Yeah, it's like he was
MVP at all minor leagues, and he got to the Astros and struggled.
And it's and that's a real thing. And so if that happens to you more than a couple of times, then you can kind of get. There was a guy named J.R. Phillips who was he would lead the AAA team in homers every year, but every time he got called up, he wouldn't do anything. And then so eventually he's out of the game. So I know that this is a real deal. And I remember kind of my breakthrough was, and you had mentioned earlier about the faith component and being a man of faith. I got to a point where I was like, I really am not feeling good. I remember being we lived in a little townhouse over off of Augusta here in Houston while that first year, and I remember being on the floor literally in tears, because I felt like, here I am. I'm on the precipice of being able to achieve what had been a lifelong dream, and it's not happening. And was so frustrated and so down. And we were leaving to go on a road trip to Chicago. And so while we were in Chicago, I happened to be reading in my Bible, and 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3 and following. Basically, Peter's writing to the Jewish Christians that have been dispersed, and so they're going through tribulation. So he's writing to people that are experiencing tribulation, and he says that if you're a believer in Christ, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, that you have an inheritance that will never perish, spoil, or fade, that's kept for you in heaven by God Himself. And it's like, okay, well, if that's true, and he really believed that, then everything else is small potatoes. You know, if we have an inheritance that's kept for us in heaven, then this baseball deal, it just helped put it in its proper perspective.
Yeah.
And that really changed my mindset on what I was trying to do. So we come back from Chicago. It was a short trip. And the first game back home was against the Atlanta Braves. And of course, after this new mindset produced 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts. And so now
you're like,
you know, like what in the world? Yeah. And so I remember being in the on-deck circle. And at that time, of course, I was never a great right-handed hitter, but especially early in my career, I was really not a good right-handed hitter. I mean, I was much better left-handed. And I had been 0 for 3 left-handed. And Atlanta went to the bullpen for one of the better left-handed relievers in the game. Kent Marker, I think is who it was. Mm-hmm. He came in and he was a hard-throwing lefty. And I'm thinking, oh, great. You know, Thanks. Here I am. I'm going to be 0 for 4 again. And I was leading the inning off. So right before I went up to the plate, I took the donut off my bat and I just reminded myself, hey, you know, if you really believe that, then
do what you do.
Do what you do. Yeah. And so I went up there and I swung at the first pitch and ended up hitting a home run. So instead of being 0 for 3, I was 1 for 4, which is a huge difference. Oh,
yeah.
You know,
especially with a bomb.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And from then the next day I got a couple of hits, and then the next day I got 3 hits. And so that was sort of the launching point, if you will, for establishing, you know, myself at the major league level. And I attribute it to just changing my thinking a little bit about it.
And you told me before when you got sent down, you cried.
Oh yeah,
it was quite a revelation. Went into the Bible, and you know we've had other people on here that talk about Jesus and the Bible and faith, and it works.
Yeah.
Okay, and if it doesn't, you'll find out when you die. You want to get up there and go, "You're real, darn it! I wish I was."
I know it. Yeah, that could be a scary thing for sure. So.
But here's a story that Vincent told me he didn't remember. He said that you went down to the minors, and Vincent had the same minor league coach. I don't remember who it was. And he said that he told you, Berkman, you got to run. You got to run hard when you run. And you went out and got, the next day, you commandeered one of the maintenance guys with the blower.
The blower, yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And you put the blower between your legs?
No, it was a backpack blower.
Yeah.
And so like we were doing early work, and it was so I had the backpack blower on, and I was, you know, just jacking around, of course, leading off of first base, and I'm working on my steel brakes, and I had it on. I would rev it up, and then I would take off, and I would put the blower behind me, and it would kick up dust, and so it looked like I was.
Is this fast enough,
like
Coach?
A jetpack. Yeah. That's a true story.
Yeah. It says, God, I don't remember. So you told me that story. How can you not remember?
Yeah.
The same coach. I can't remember.
Tony Pena was the manager. It may have been, or John Tamargo. I can't remember exactly. Those were the two guys that managed me in AAA. So it was one of those two.
So you've got crazy statistics. I mean, almost 1,200 runs scored, over 1,200 RBIs. That's a big time person. I mean, I know you're humble and you don't like to talk about that stuff, but I do. Here's the biggest stat that I like. Who's the best switch hitter in the history of the game? Mickey Mantle. Okay. There's only 2 guys that have hit more than 40 home runs in multiple seasons as a switch hitter. Mickey Mantle and this guy right here.
Well,
that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, it's cool to anytime you're mentioned in the same sentence with the Mick,
right?
It kind of gets your attention.
I mean, I watched him. Here's how old I am. I watched him growing up, and I watched you grow up. So when you were doing all those offers, I'm like, come on, Berkman, let's go.
Well, I think my dad was doing the same thing, and he, that Mickey was his favorite player growing up. Was a lot of
we only had a couple games.
Yeah,
and Cardinals and Yankees on Saturday.
I think he really felt like, that's what he wanted, a switch hitting center fielder for a son, and that's what he tried to make me into. Now, of course, I kind of grew out of playing center field. I played center when I was a kid, but then you get to a certain point and you realize that I'm not nearly as fast as some of these guys that are covering ground out there.
So. Stop. Tails Hill.
Yeah.
Famous. When they put that out there, I was like, that's a career-ending injury waiting to happen.
Oh man,
right? Yeah. You're running out there, and all of a sudden you got this hill with a flagpole that Richie Sexton hit, and dented and got a double.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of the hardest balls I've ever seen hit. The good news about that hill is it was so far out there that it hardly ever came into play.
Yeah.
You know, but it did happen.
But you did.
Yeah.
With your back turned
just trying to survive to catch it.
And Justin, we're gonna put that clip on for this podcast just to show that. And then you caught it and you just sat down on the hill like.
I mean, I started laughing.
Thank God it was a third out.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. If there had been a base run, although
that was like 420 or 430 feet out there.
Oh yeah, it was way out there. In fact,
it's like the polo grounds.
Yeah. So when I was several years after that, this is how far out there it is. Several years after that, we had a guy named Michael Bourne who played at U of H, left-handed hitter, really fast, center fielder, and he was on second base with one out, and I was hitting, and I hit a fly ball out there to the base of Towles Hill. Michael Bourne tagged at second base and scored without a throw. By the time the guy could catch it and get it back into the infield, he had already. So I got a sacrifice fly with a guy on second base.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
and it's really cool. The baseball network is such a close knit network. You and me. You talked about Andy Pettit. We coached his kid, Roger. We had his kid, Biggio. We had his kid on the Houston Heat, and so a lot of people say, "Oh, you getting to see Lance Berkman?" I said, "You got to remember, these guys are all normal guys that can hit a baseball or throw a baseball, run or pitch. But if you visit with them outside of baseball, you think about some of the charity stuff that we've done. You're just a normal guy. I mean that's what people don't understand. But Michael Bourne's son plays with my grandson.
Oh, really? Okay.
They were on their little 7, 8, and 9-year-old team. Michael ended up going to the Woodlands. Jackson goes to Tomball. And so, I mean, the circle just keeps going, keeps going. I remember your dad and all that. So, all right. So you played for 15 years, Astros with the Astrodome, then Enron, which became Minute Maid, and beautiful place, right?
It's a great place.
It's hard to believe that that's 25 years old.
I know it.
I went to opening day with appendicitis.
Oh, yeah.
I sat there. I think I got gas.
Oh, no.
Get my appendicitis out the next day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great stats there. And then what? Wore out your welcome and had to go to, you went and played with the Cardinals?
Yeah. Well, and we had that good run with Houston there.
05.
And really 4, 5, and 6. One interesting thing about those 3 years in particular is that we never played a meaningless game. But what I mean by that is for 3 straight years, think about this, all 162 games meant something. And usually, like if you're winning your division or you lock up a playoff spot, you do it before the last game of the season.
Right.
So in 04, we clinched a playoff spot on the last game of the season. Same thing in 05. It was the last game of the season. And then in 06, we lost a playoff spot on the last game of the season. John Smoltz beat us 1-0 in Atlanta. But we played 3 straight years with not one meaningless game, which is kind of crazy. But then after that run, Andy Pettit, who was a big part of all of that, he left and went back to the Yankees. And then we kind of the team started to be dismantled a little bit. Yeah. We didn't re-sign Carlos Beltran. We didn't really make any kind of a free agent. We did sign Carlos Lee, but it's like the team just kind of pushed the pause button. They traded Brad Lidge. They started trading pieces. They traded Roy Oswalt. Yeah. And so it was like, okay,
now what?
Yeah, and it looked like we were heading into a rebuild. So I had a no trade clause, but then all of my friends, that were the main drivers on those successful teams had left, and they came to me and they were like, "Hey, would you entertain a trade if we found a trade partner?" I was like, "Well, it would depend on who it is, but yes." I mean, I'm looking around like,
I want to win.
And you guys don't look like you're committed to winning. So
was that was Drayton still?
Drayton, yeah, he was. So unbeknownst to everybody, he was preparing to sell the team to Crane. So he was trying to reduce the payroll, trading all the higher priced veteran guys, so that the team would be more attractive to a buyer, which he ended up selling it several years later. So, and that was in 2010. And also in spring training that year, I hurt my knee in a drill and ended up having to have surgery in the middle of spring training.
Blower.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. We were just doing a regular drill. But I had to have surgery in the middle of spring training. never really recovered, and was all, had the worst season of my career. And then of course they came to me about halfway through the season and said, would you be willing to waive your no trade clause to go to play in New York with the Yankees? And so I was like, yes, I'll do that. And one, because it's a historical franchise. I've always wondered, what it'd be like to play in New York. Yeah. No, it was the second year of the new stadium.
It was?
Oh, yeah, because they won it in 2009, and that was the first year of the new stadium.
Right.
And then in 2010 is when I got traded up there. So got traded midway through 2010, played that year, the rest of the year with the Yankees, and then we got beat by the Rangers in the ALCS in 2010. And then I was a free agent at the end of the season, so I signed with the Cardinals on a 1-year deal. So the 2011 year ended up being, I got healthy and, was really motivated going into that year to try to reclaim my career, if you will.
Comeback player of the year.
And we ended up winning the World Series. And that was, that was the highlight of my entire baseball life, was winning that World Series with the Cardinals. It was a remarkable experience.
Do you think players today care if they win the World Series or not with the money that's being put out there? It's like, I made, $200 million. I don't care if I make the Hall of Fame. And I mean, there's a lot of guys that, with the PEDs and all that stuff that went on really during those times that, they signed for $200 million and, I'm good. If I don't make the Hall of Fame, it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's not quite as cut and dried as that. I think there's a lot of nuance to it because on the one hand, you're right. I mean, the money is outrageous and it's really good, and it's hard to be too upset if you're making a bunch of money and you're playing a game for a living. And
when you signed though for like $85 million or something for 10 years, that was big.
Oh yeah, no, so it just keeps growing. Sure. And of course the players, our players from my era are like, these guys are making, but I know that you look back, guys.
I'd do it for $1 million. No, you wouldn't, because you suck.
Yeah. And so I think you have varying degrees of the way people care about that stuff. And so I know that from my personal standpoint, you get to the end of the season and it's such a long year and it's such a grind and the travel is crazy. And of course you want to make the playoffs, but also when the off season starts, you're not that disappointed. So you there's this balance between, it's kind of like,
gave it my all, but
I want to win. But then if we, it's like the worst thing that can happen to you is the best thing that can happen to you. Cause now you're going to get a little bit of a break. So I think with all pro guys, you kind of fight that balance a little bit. And then of course, once you get into the competition, you get into the playoffs, you want to win, and it's exciting.
You turn it up a notch,
the atmosphere really infuses you with energy. So, I mean, I guess I didn't really answer your question, but I do think
it's okay. I love listening to you talk about it.
I think some guys are more concerned about their legacy and winning a World Series. I know that like when A-Rod, that was like, I mean, he reportedly said, I would trade one of my children for a World Series ring. So there's some guys that think like that. And then there's other guys that you'll talk to that's like, hey, it's a good way to make a living. And if I happen to win one, great. If not, no big deal.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. it's funny. We talked about the stepping stones. Wayne was the stepping stone, building that into a College World Series champion. Phil Garner, who we just lost, unfortunately. Great guy. He was actually going to do a podcast with us and passed away recently. And he was kind of the stepping stone for that 05 team. He went to the World Series, got swept, but you made it.
Yeah.
And when I moved here in 1978, the Astros absolutely sucked. The first game I ever went to in 1979, Ken Forsch pitched a no-hitter. First game I ever went to. And there was like 6 people in there because they were so terrible. And they've done this 05, and then Altuve come on, and they'd lose 100 games a year.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, here we go. We're build a team. But you play in the National League.
Yep.
And now we're in the American League. Any difference really?
I mean, not anymore, probably because now they have the DH in both leagues, and
Pettit had to bunt, and Roger had to bunt,
right?
Roy had to bunt.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned the Gar coming in, so he came in the middle of the 2004 season. We were underperforming because we had the 2004 team really, to me, was the best team that I was ever on personnel wise in Houston. I mean, we had we had Jeff Kent, we had, Clemens and Pettit and Oswalt were leading the rotation. We had a reasonably healthy Bagwell, a reasonably healthy Biggio. We traded for Carlos Beltran. So, I mean, we had a really deep lineup and a really good pitching staff. And we were just, kind of bumbling along, couldn't really get it together. And they made a change in the middle of the year and they brought in Gar. And I'll never forget, I think we were in San Diego. He called the team meeting, right when he got hired, and he said, "Hey guys, we're a better team than this. You guys are much more talented than you've been playing. What's the problem?" And we kind of had this open dialogue. But he really came in and established leadership right off the bat, brought everybody together, brought an energy and like a passion. And he was, of course, his nickname was Scrap Iron, so a toughness and a grittiness that I think we were missing. And that helped us get over the hump. But the thing to me that stands out about that period in Astro history, before that, the Astros had never won a playoff series. They'd been in '80, got beat by the Phillies, been in '86, got beat by the Mets. So they had never won a play. In 2001,
I watched all
we made the postseason, got swept by the Braves. So here we are in 2004. We've never won a postseason series in the history of the franchise. And we had signed both Andy Pettit and Roger Clemens at the beginning of that year, and they had just come off of a historic run with the Yankees and brought that attitude of going from thinking that we could maybe win to knowing that you could win and believing that you could win. And so because Andy and Roger had been there before and knew that it was possible, they're like, we can do this. And that attitude also helped kind of get us over the hump. So in 2004, we beat the Braves in the NLDS, and they'd been kind of the nemesis of the Astros to that point. But we won that series in 5 games, and that was the first time we'd ever won a playoff series. And then we lost to the Cardinals in 7 games in the NLCS, and then that next year is when we beat the Braves again in the DS, and then we beat the Cardinals in the NLCS and went to the World Series. And you mentioned, we got swept by the White Sox. But all those games were competitive.
Yeah,
they were, one of them was a walk-off win. There was another 13 or 14 inning game that they ended up going the other way. So but you're right. It kind of laid a foundation that showed that it's possible for a team in Houston to make it to the World Series. And then, when you get Altuve and Springer and some of those Brantley and some of those guys that came in that played such a huge role, in Verlander, veteran guys that believe they can win. And then, of course, they were able to have the success that they've had over the last several years.
It's crazy because you talked about Wayne coming in and saying, we can win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have got to change your attitude and your mentality about winning. You get Gar.
Same thing, yeah.
We can win.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know what you've got. And, I mean, that's just fun. I get goosebumps talking about Phil,
yeah,
because Phil's boy Ty played against Vincent growing up, so we became friends, and we did some real estate deals together, and just we would talk about just baseball, real estate, kids, just life, and same as this. It was a friendship thing, and to hear him say, a lot of times kids don't understand just how good they are, and then if you put them together with a Biggio and a Bagwell and a Pettit and a Roger Clemens, and all of a sudden, right, and you're in that mix and you're going, well, shoot, these guys want to win.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that don't buy into it kind of get
right. Well, you got, it starts with, you have to have the players. I mean, you have to have the talent to be able to do it. But then then it becomes about your mentality. So if you have the combination of good talent with the right mentality, then anything's possible.
Yeah. Tell me what you think about the way the game has changed. I know what you're going to say about the umpires, but the way the game has changed to make it quicker, which I don't know why you want to make a game. It's the national pastime. Well, so what if it takes 3 hours?
Yeah.
You're not going there to, watch every pitch. You're going there to drink a beer and eat a hot dog and BS with your friends. But we got bigger bases. We got the ABS now. We've got, the pitch clock and all that.
Yeah, I mean, so some of it I'm a fan of. Like, I hate umpires, so I think having the ABS,
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, is a good thing. I think they should not be part of the competition. You work hard the pitcher's working hard, and then you introduce a third element, that can really swing the competition one way or the other, and it's outside of either the control of the professional, and that's irritating. So
we didn't pay to see the umpire. The best umpires are the ones you hardly
you
notice.
don't even notice them.
Yeah.
So that I like that. I also honestly at first I was against the pitch clock, but I do enjoy the pace
a little bit quicker.
Yeah, because and especially playing defense. There's nothing worse than playing defense behind a guy that's a human rain delay. So the pitch clock is kind of forces guys into a tempo that I think is reasonable, and the games are still taking right at 3 hours. Yes, which is I think that's a reasonable amount of time for a 9-inning baseball game.
It's the most boring game in the world, but it's the most exciting.
Yeah,
game
it can be. Yeah, for sure. So I like that. The size of the bases. I mean, I don't know.
That was to encourage base
more stealing. Yeah,
Michael Bourne would have loved that.
I know it. Yeah, I know. I don't know how big of an impact that's actually had on the game. I know there's a safety concern too. They're trying to give more room, for you don't have a collision.
You can't run into anybody.
Yeah.
Can't get plunked by anybody.
Right now, and those are the kind of things that I don't like, because I think it takes some of the toughness away from what the game used to be. And they used to have to, wear it every once in a while and be willing to take
That's kind
out
of an initiation.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember when you came up, you got plunked quite a few times, and well, that's what you got to do. They want to see if you're worthy of being here.
That's right.
Bagwell, I mean, they created that pad for him because they kept going inside out.
No, and it's just part of the game, or at least it was part of the game. And I think the other thing it takes away from is the players' ability to police the game themselves. And if somebody did something on the other team that you didn't like, well, I mean, they got a hit, and you end up, sending a little message. And I think that was part of the game within the game that's been taken away. Of course, breaking up the double play at second base has been taken away. I mean, I get it from a player safety standpoint. Guys are making a lot of money and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I think they've taken some of the toughness out of the game. And the physical toughness then, to me, leads to, some of the lack of mental toughness that you see. I mean, I heard Andy was telling me he went to spring training, and the San Francisco Giants have these kennels in the clubhouse, and Andy's like, because they were, Andy was the pitching coach for Team USA, and I guess they were working out some at the San Francisco complex. He's like, what are these kennels for? And they said, well, that we have like basically emotional support dogs for the players.
What?
Yeah, that come in and they keep them in there. So like, I guess if you go 0 for 4, you can pet your lab, or I don't know, but that to me is just, that's beyond.
Your dog is always happy. You don't care if you went 0 for 4.
Anyway, I think that's absurd if true.
Oh wow.
But anyway, so there are things like that. I think too, all the celebration. Of course, I don't like it, but that's one of those where it's like you're an old fogey. But to me, it has more to do with, I think the old school mentality is I don't want to draw any undue attention to myself, and and at the same time I don't want to disrespect my opponent, because the game's so hard, and there's this mutual respect of like, okay, I might have won this battle, but next time you could win. And so
the guy on deck doesn't like it.
Yeah, well, you start cavorting around, you're drawing attention to yourself, and you're also, to me, showing the other team up.
I've told this story before when Adam Dunn was here about Ted Williams, and they said, why do you run around the bases almost quicker than when you hit a double, and you run right into the dugout and kind of go back in there? And he said, well, I do that because I'm hoping maybe they won't remember me the next time I come up.
I mean, you don't want to give them any extra incentive to get you out. I mean, it's hard enough as it is.
And even if they don't plunk the guy on deck, if you're coming up another couple innings, they're going to remember, I flipped the bat.
I know.
I watched it.
But now they can't, there's nothing. Now it's like, that's the part of the game to me that is, it's interesting, because the kids now don't really seem affected by it. Like guys will hit a home run and flip the bat, and our guys are just like, that's just what happens.
Yeah,
like,
It's almost accepted.
That offends me.
And then all that celebration,
and
the monkey
they don't
dance,
get offended by it. I guess because it's just part of the game now.
And I grew up, the same era as your dad, where
no, that's that kind of stuff. Just
Nolan Ryan,
fly.
bow tie.
That's it. Yeah.
And Bob Gibson, telling Joe Morgan.
That's right.
Get back in there, cover up that.
Yeah.
So what about the ABS?
I love it. I mean, I think it's great, because it's, like I said, those guys, especially, the thing that's crazy, and maybe this is perception and not reality, but it seems like the worst calls that come from the umpires are in the biggest situations. Like they choke just like, an athlete can choke.
Yeah.
And so I think having the ability to challenge a call really is helpful, especially because, a lot of people don't understand one call can change the entire game.
Sure.
If one wrong call in the right situation swings the outcome of the game. And as a hitter, it's like, okay, I mean, if I'm up there and it's bases loaded and I got a 3-2 count or what, even if it's let's say it's a 1-0 and the guy calls a ball a strike instead of being 2-0 and in the driver's seat, now it's 1-1. He's back in the count. I mean, it makes a huge difference psychologically and obviously
a lot of different
strategically.
Stuff.
So I like the ABS a lot. In fact, if they would just do away with umpires, it would not hurt my feelings.
Who would call outs and save?
I don't know.
The camera?
Just have somebody out there, that was like that.
The fans.
Anybody.
Well, the catchers could call balls and strikes, and really, guys like you've seen many more balls and pitches coming across the plate than any umpire. I know that they'll see 300 pitches in a game. Well, the Astros maybe 500, but they'll see all those pitches. But if you think about the guys that are hitting, Chipper Jones said it. He got in a dispute with an umpire. Said, I've seen a lot of pitches. That's in the strike zone. Chipper says, trust me, I've seen many more pitches than you. I know what the strike zone is.
Yeah.
And it's true. Schwarber the other day, he walked on a 3-2 pitch and he called it a strike, and he went and just ran down to first
because he knew it was a ball.
He was off by 2 inches.
Well, and the hitters know, and the pitchers really should too. But the hitters for sure, I think, if they ever go to like fully automated, and once the hitters understand where that zone is, it's going to be tough for the pitchers because as a hitter, like you dial it in. I mean, if you make the pitchers actually throw the ball over the plate, you're going to have, I think, an offensive uptick for sure.
5 innings. Boy, if you go 5 innings, you're a stud pitcher. And for some reason, I'm just picking on the Astros because I watch their games a lot, or at least I used to. And we are just adamant about throwing 20 pitches in an inning. I'm like, can we just throw like 12?
Well, the whole game has really shifted to the home run and the strikeout.
Yeah.
It's like a zero-sum game instead of, and I think that takes a lot of the art out of what pitching really should be about, which is staying off the sweet spot of the bat. Like you should want guys to put the ball in play, but just not on the sweet spot. Soft contact, pitching to soft contact is the way to go, in my opinion, because that's when the game gets interesting and you have good defenders and you get to watch, kind of the flow of those kind of things. It's not fun to watch. To me, it's not fun to watch a game where it's all strikeouts and you're just waiting for somebody to hit a 2 or 3 run
boring
homer. Yeah. And so I think by eliminating the shift, I think that was a huge step in the right direction. But I still think that the mentality now is on stuff and not necessarily the art of pitching. I mean, you've got, they're drafting and they're valuing the strikeout, the swing and miss stuff. And so you've got guys that, instead of pitching to the corners, they're like, I want to throw 100 miles an hour right down the middle and throw a nasty slider, off of that and try to strike guys out. And then from a hitting perspective, you got guys that are hitting 210, 220, but as long as you hit your 20 to 30 homers, then you're considered a good player.
Adam Dunn. I mean, he hit 462 home runs and batted 220.
Yeah, there's always guys like that, but I mean, I'm saying
very productive,
right? From a league wide, that used to not be. You would accept that because of a guy that has that kind of a power potential, but that's not what was valued necessarily in terms of league wide. Like the strikeout when I was playing was still sort of a mark of shame. Now it doesn't. The hitters strike out all the time; they don't care.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
and they don't do anything to alter their swing or to cut down on their swing to try to not strike out and put the ball in play. And that's rewarded. And I if they went back to the days when you were rewarded for your batting average, I think you would see a much different approach from the hitters.
Yeah, there's not many guys that hit over 300 anymore. You were lifetime 293,
something like that. Yeah,
and 366 home runs. Plus, like I said, runs scored and RBIs. That's the name of the game for me. But I taught Vincent the same thing. Batting average is big.
Yeah,
because you're on base. for the guys behind you.
No doubt. And it people can say what they want about batting average being an overrated statistic, but it's still like you're not hitting for, and there is a degree of luck involved in that and where you hit them and all that, but you're still not hitting, you're not going to hit for a high average unless you're consistently putting the bat on the ball, and you're consistently making good contact. And that's, to me, it's a mark of that. And it's not like, the difference between 200 and 300 to me is a vast chasm, like, and if you're below 280, to me, you're not putting the ball in play enough. You're not, and there may be there may be a handful of balls or a handful of seasons where you hit lower than that because you got unlucky. But for the most part, the really good hitters are somewhere in that neighborhood between 280 and 310, and
every year.
And so
what would you tell? Well, not only the college kids, but what would you tell the younger kids, like the little leaguers and the Austin Slam guys, when you get to be 15 and 16 and 17, you're going all over the country, Atlanta for the perfect game and all that. What would you counsel them into their approach at the plate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple, and you work hard to develop a level swing. There's a lot of talk nowadays about launch angle and all of that kind of stuff, and the misconception is that the launch angle comes from the attack angle. So, launch angle is just the angle that the ball comes off the bat. I can create launch angle with a flat swing. And when I say flat swing, the reason they call it a flat swing is to the naked eye, it looks flat. Like if you were to watch somebody just swing without being able to slow it down, the barrel looks like it's coming through the contact zone, really flat. You don't want to see like steepness in the swing on either side. And every swing is a pendulum because it doesn't matter if you buy into the, upswing or whatever. Every swing has a down component and an up component. And even the flattest swings, when you get to a certain part, they start to work up. And so what I always encourage guys to think about your swing like a pendulum, and you don't want steepness on either side. Like I don't want to be steeply down and I don't want to be steeply up. I want my bat to, if it was a swing, I want it to be a nice gentle pendulum.
I want it to be in the contact zone for a long time. Just like your first hit.
Yeah.
Thought you were hitting it out there.
And you hit it back because that's a salient point. That is exactly why you do that, because time behind with your barrel, time behind the ball is what buys you margin of error. At the higher levels, the trick is those guys are really good at disrupting your timing. And so there's a lot of at-bats where you're either a little bit late or a little bit early. In fact, there's maybe 50 or 60 swings during the whole year am I perfectly on time. And those tend to be, your homers and your extra base hits and the ones that, but you're trying to get basically 100 hits when you're either a little bit late or a little bit early.
It doesn't matter where it goes.
You're right. And if your barrel is not behind the ball and you're late, you're out. Or if your barrel's not behind the ball because it's moving up and you're early, you're out. So I want to develop a swing where if I'm a little late, I can hit a line drive over there. If I'm a little bit early, I can keep the ball off the ground and hit a line drive to right field or right center. And so
listen.
So the flat swing is the way to do that. The pendulum of the swing needs to be gentle in both directions. And if you look at most really good hitters, they finish with the bat below the level of their like right at their deltoid. So when my bat comes around, I finish right here.
Top thumb.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's gonna happen, through just because that's the way your body works. But whenever you finish, that bat should hit you right at your deltoid. If it's up over your shoulder, what that means is at some point in the swing, the barrel is moving this way. And what doesn't make sense to me is the ball's coming in. It's a major league fastball comes in at 9 to 11 degrees down, which if I were to put a string, you would think that's a straight line, but it's actually just a little bit tilted this way. So I want my barrel to match that. So if my barrel's moving up at 45 degrees and the ball's coming in at 9 degrees, I'm not behind the ball. And I have to be perfect with my timing to have success. And these guys are really good.
Do the kids buy into that? Do they
do when you explain it to them like that. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of bad information out there hitting wise. And you've got guys that are teaching this dump the barrel early and, you end up dragging it through. So I think if you can kind of talk on their level and really break it down and explain it like that, they understand it because it makes sense. You're looking for time with your barrel behind the ball. And the reason why you hear about a lot of these guys that won't do the home run derby. And you think about, well, why would a major league hitter be concerned about doing the home run derby? And they don't like it because it's a different swing than you take that works in a real game. You know? So the reason is because in a home run derby, it's batting practice, and there is no timing component. Like the ball's coming in at the same trajectory, the same timing, and so I can do all kind of crazy stuff because I can meet that ball at a certain time and space, every time. That doesn't work in a real game because the pitchers are doing this and that and this, and the ball's doing all kind of stuff. So I've got to be able to
you got to figure it out.
And it's got to be short and quick, and it's got to be like, behind the ball. So
very cool.
It's just one of those deals where you get into this. Yeah, you can teach a kid to have greater exit velocity. You can teach a kid to like get tilted and have the optimal launch angle, but that doesn't work in a real game against elite pitching. And so,
especially at Rice, Grand Canyon out there.
Yeah. You got to be able to like drive.
Well, it must be working because they're like 23-14. I mean,
and we, hitting is. You mentioned it at the early onset of this. Is that hitting is the hardest thing there is to do in sports, but particularly it's the hardest thing in baseball, but it's the hardest thing in sports in general. And it's wildly inconsistent. I mean, it's reactive. It's dependent on a lot of factors, and so. You work to try to be as consistent as possible. And that's the piece of our team that we're really still trying to develop some guys. And that's why the pitching and defense has to be consistent, because it's much easier to be consistent in those areas than it is offensively. So, we could talk for hours about hitting and mechanics and all of that. But the last thing I'll say about it is if you hit the bottom half of the ball with a flat swing, that's how you backspin the ball. That's the one thing that I see from kids is that a lot of young hitters have a real hard time backspinning the ball to the pull side. When they hit the ball to the pull side, it has top spin because their barrel is underneath and over the top like you would in tennis. And learning how to like get the barrel out in front with a flat swing and then catching the bottom of the ball, that's how that's how you generate.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people saying, stay on top of the ball. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, well, and what they mean by that is keep your barrel above your hands a long time.
Yeah.
Like and there's a difference, like I said, now we've gotten off into this deal, but there's a big difference between feel and real. Like what you feel is happening and what's really happening is often two different things. And as a hitting coach, the trick is to communicate the feel that makes the real swing do what you want it to do. So some guys need to feel like I'm swinging straight down on top of the ball in order to get the barrel in a good position to hit. Some guys need to feel like I'm hitting the ball to the top of the cage to get the barrel in a good position to hit. And so you can't coach everybody the same way. And when I look at a guy's swing, I'm looking primarily at like, how is he entering the hitting zone? Some guys are really steep this way.
Yeah.
Some guys dump their barrel early and they're underneath, so depending on which kind of guy it is, I might tell one guy to swing straight down. I might tell another guy to feel like you're hitting fly balls. So, but you're communicating a feel that you're hoping gets the barrel in a good position to hit.
It's funny. I watched Tony Gwynn when I was playing high school ball and in college, and Robin Yount. Robin Yount played minor league ball in my freaking hometown. I used to play catch with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was 17. His first ball was in the hole at shortstop. Threw it over first base, over the bleachers. It broke a windshield in the parking lot. And everybody was like, who the hell is this kid?
Yeah,
and I'm
got
like,
a good
what
arm.
an arm.
Yeah.
And so, same thing. Flat bat, get it through the zone.
Well,
both those guys.
Historically, that's the other thing that people act like they've reinvented the game. And if you look at Babe Ruth's swing and Aaron Judge's swing, they're very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, going, from all the way back to and every good hitter from that period to now, it's the same swing. There's not 100 ways to swing the bat. There's one right way for the bat to come through the strike zone if you want to have sustained success. So, there's a lot of individual variations in your setup and those kind of things, like where you hold your hands and where's comfortable. But in terms of when the front foot hits the ground and the barrel gets from the launch position into the zone, there's only one right way for that to happen.
There you go. Toughest guy you ever faced. Oh, you ready to go?
Well, no, I thought you were wrapping it up. I'm sorry.
No, like you said, we do this for hours.
The toughest guy I ever faced was Randy Johnson.
Yeah,
because
even from the right side.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Number one, I was had to hit right-handed, which is by far my weaker side, and number two, he was really good.
You know what? That's what Adam Dunn said too.
Yeah.
And he batted left-handed.
Yeah.
You know, he letting the ball go behind me. He says, forget it. And then, you know,
it felt like he was handing the ball to the catcher. I mean, he's 7 feet tall.
You know, Kruk and the old put the helmet on backwards.
That's right.
Yeah. He's the only guy that I've ever watched when Astros signed him. He came out to the bullpen to get ready and got a standing ovation.
Yeah. Well, they were so hungry for, you know,
that was
a winner at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put baseball to the side. What are you doing outside of baseball? You married your college sweetheart, Kara Baker.
That's right.
Yeah. Got 4 girls.
Uh-huh.
I know you're busy with them. How old?
So my oldest daughter is 20. She'll be 25 in May.
What?
And I'm a grandfather, so she had a baby.
Shut up.
She and her husband had a baby 2 weeks ago. So little Molly, little baby girl. So newly minted grandfather.
Are they in town?
They're in town. Yeah, right around the corner from us.
25?
Yeah. And then I had her when I was 24. So I'm a young. I like to think of myself as a
50.
Yeah, young grandfather. But then my second daughter she graduated from Southwestern there in Georgetown.
Right. She's smart.
She's back home. She's working for an interior decorator and teaching, exercise classes at a place. So she's waiting on her that she's dating seriously one of the catchers for the Rice baseball team. So when he graduates, I'm sure they'll get married, and so that's been good. And then I have Katie, my third daughter, is a freshman at Baylor. And then we have Abby, who's a sophomore in high school. So we kind of got them all over the map.
No white chromosomes in that body.
No, all girls.
Exit all the way.
All girls. So.
And so do you still have the charities that?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of stuff. Just we give into a foundation that then enables us to kind of like, when a project will come to us, we can have the flexibility to say, okay, well, we'll give to that. So we still do a lot of that. I have a big ranch down in South Texas that I love to go to, and I love to fool with that. And
you just came from a fishing trip.
Just came from a fishing trip, and so yeah, just staying busy with.
So you hang out with Andy and.
Yeah, he's fixing to move to Dallas though, so I'm fixing to lose one of my good buddies.
Why?
They're moving up there because all their family is up there.
Oh.
You know, their kids moved up there for work, and so Andy and Laura are like, they've got I think 3 or 4 grandchildren, and they want to be close to them, which I don't blame them. So they're moving up there.
Here's how old I am. I watched him pitch in high school.
Uh-huh.
I watched Coach Pierce coach high school.
Yeah,
Dobie,
uh-huh,
Roger. All those guys were like, damn, am I getting old?
Oh, man, we definitely are, and I can feel it.
You're nothing.
Well, it feels like it. I mean, I'm telling you.
You could be my kid.
Yeah, but.
I wish you were, because I could use some money. Anyway, so what else? What's the future hold?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's
just living life.
Yeah, just kind of
living life. You look freaking great. Last time I saw you, you were still Fat Elvis.
Yeah.
Now.
Well,
are you on some sort of diet or
no? I mean, I think I am on a little bit of a diet, but really just coaching kind of keeps you active and on your feet and moving around. So
are you over there at Rice every day then?
Pretty much every day. Yep. The only thing I haven't done this year, I haven't traveled with them. I traveled with them last year, but when they get they went to Charlotte this past weekend. I didn't go.
Swept them. Don't
yeah.
go.
Yeah, no, and I'm like, maybe I should stay away.
Well,
more
I got a sophomore at Tomball.
Okay.
6'4".
Wow.
Yeah, Vincent's kid.
I got you.
Left-handed hitter, and played on varsity last night and did
How's
pretty
he doing?
well. He's doing great.
Good.
Yeah, the summer he's going to play with Adam Dunn and Aaron Hill's team.
Okay.
This summer.
Yeah.
On the Marucci team.
Uh-huh.
So those guys are like
they'll be
old timers. This is the way you're going to play.
Yeah.
You're going to play to win and all that. So yeah. So what else can you share with us?
I mean, really, that's it. I'm pretty simple life,
Man, I love your career. You're a guy that never was in trouble in the league. You got thrown out a few times and never swore at anybody. You don't use any expletives.
No, yeah, that's
what a weirdo.
Claim to fame. Yeah, I know,
especially in that league.
I know it. Yeah, but I managed to get kicked out. I think of 8 games in my career without using profanity.
That's got to be another record.
It might be. It sure might be.
All right. Thanks, man.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Hey, Big Puma, Fat Elvis, also known as Lance Berkman. Astros, you retired with the Astros,
yeah.
so, right?
Yeah.
you were brick red versus the orange.
I know it. I like their uniforms now a lot better
so,
for sure.
Well, keep tuning in. I'm so happy to have this. We got some ball players. We've had really some good content. I think we're going to post the one with the Lone Star College.
Okay.
Guy, great story. Grew up in Mexico and, no water, no electricity. He's the chancellor of the biggest college in Texas. So Vinny's out to lunch or out to the farm with the big puma. So thanks for tuning in. Keep watching. Thanks, brother.
Appreciate it. Love you, man. Yeah.